The sky was filled with shining ships. They moved slowly, their silver bodies glowing under the light of the twin suns. The people of the planet had never seen anything like this before. High above the mountains, the largest ship opened a hatch, and a small basket floated down. Inside the basket was a human baby. His tiny hands reached out, and his eyes were wide with curiosity. The Dragon Queen watched from her palace balcony. She was enormous, her scales glimmering like jewels. Her wings stretched high into the air, casting a shadow over the courtyard. She had ruled this world for many years, but she had never seen a human before. She leaned forward, her golden eyes fixed on the tiny figure descending from the sky. The baby landed softly in the courtyard. The dragons that guarded the palace gathered around, curious but careful. They sniffed and clicked their teeth, unsure what to do with this small, fragile creature. The queen stepped forward. Her voice was calm but strong, echoing across the stone walls. "Bring him here," she commanded. The dragons obeyed, moving gently as they lifted the basket and carried it to her feet. She looked at the baby closely. He had soft skin, dark hair, and eyes that seemed to shine even in the sunlight. She reached down, her clawed hand hovering over him. For a moment she was afraid. Humans were small, weak, and delicate. But there was something about him. Something that made her heart feel warm, even though she had never felt such feelings before. The queen turned to her advisors, who stood behind her in a line. "What is this?" she asked. One of them, an older dragon with silver scales, stepped forward. "They say he is a human. His people are far away and he was found drifting in space. They offer him to you as a gift, your majesty." The queen thought for a moment. She had received many gifts before, treasures, jewels, rare foods. But none of them had stirred her interest like this little being. She looked down at him again. The baby reached out a tiny hand and the queen bent closer. She felt a strange pull, like the universe had placed him here for a reason. "Then he shall stay," she said finally. "He will be under my care." The advisors murmured among themselves. Some were concerned. How could a human survive in the palace? How could he live among dragons? But the queen's mind was made up. The child would stay. The dragons carried the basket inside. The palace was enormous, filled with light, gardens, and technology that hummed with power. The baby looked around, fascinated by the colors and shapes. He gurgled happily and reached for a small floating orb that hovered nearby. The queen watched, amused. He was not afraid. Instead, he seemed curious and brave. The first night in the palace was quiet. The baby slept in a soft nest made by the queen herself. Dragons stood watch around him, their eyes glowing in the dark. The queen sat near the window looking at the stars. She wondered about the human world. She wondered what kind of life this small child had come from, and what he might become. Days passed and the baby grew quickly. He learned to crawl across the smooth floors, giggling as his small hands touched the shiny stones. He reached up toward the queen and she lifted him high into the air. He laughed, a sound that filled the palace with joy. The dragons watched, some even leaning closer, curious about the small human who had so quickly captured their queen's attention. The queen began to teach him. She spoke slowly, helping him understand the language of dragons. He listened carefully, repeating sounds and words with surprising skill. Every day he learned something new. He learned to touch the glowing panels, to walk carefully over the warm stones, and to understand the small signs and gestures of the dragons around him. The human child showed courage that amazed the dragons. He was small, yes, but he was not afraid of anything in the palace. He reached toward the tallest towers, giggling at the sight of flying dragons above him. He touched the waters in the garden, splashing joyfully, and sometimes even chased the smaller dragons as they scuttled across the floors. The queen watched all of this and smiled. She had raised many beings but none like this human. He was clever, brave, and full of life. She began to think that perhaps he was more than just a child. Perhaps he was a symbol, a bridge between dragons and humans. As the sun set each evening, the queen would lift the baby into her arms and look out across the horizon. The ships from which he had come were gone, disappearing into the stars. But the child remained, safe in her care. She whispered softly, "You are mine now. And I will help you grow strong no matter where you came from." The baby gurgled and reached for her face as if he understood. The dragon queen felt something new stir inside her. It was hope. A hope that one day this small human might become more than anyone had ever imagined. And so, the dragon queen began the journey of raising a human child in a world of dragons, not knowing that the boy would one day change everything. The human child grew quickly in the dragon queen's palace. Every day he explored new corners of the enormous building. The palace was filled with light, shining stones and glowing machines that hummed softly. Gardens with sparkling water stretched in every direction. Small dragons ran and flew through the halls, curious about the little human. But the boy was not afraid. He laughed at the dragons as they darted past him and tried to mimic their movements, hopping and flapping his arms. The dragon queen watched him from a high balcony. She had given him a small golden necklace to wear, a sign that he belonged in her palace. He tugged at it often, smiling up at her when she laughed. She liked to see his small face light up with joy. Every day she brought him to different rooms to learn about the world of dragons. He was clever. Even though he was a human, he understood quickly. He could read the glowing symbols on the walls and touch the floating panels to make the machines move. One day the queen took him to the Hall of Mirrors. The walls shone with silver, reflecting both dragons and humans. "Look at yourself," she said gently. "You are not like us, but that is good. You are special." The boy touched his reflection with his small hands, then looked up at her. He giggled and the queen smiled. She began to teach him how to speak the language of dragons clearly, repeating words slowly so he could understand. He listened carefully and tried again and again until he spoke correctly. The other dragons watched in surprise. They had not expected a human to learn so quickly. The child also learned about the palace gardens. He loved the water fountains and colorful plants. He ran through the flower paths, chasing tiny dragonflies that flickered like fire across the air. Sometimes small dragons followed him, watching his every move. He would stop suddenly, pointing at something interesting, and the dragons learned to follow his curiosity. Slowly he became a part of the palace life, not just as a visitor, but as someone the dragons respected. The queen often took him to the top of the tallest tower. From there they could see the entire kingdom. The mountains, rivers, and forests stretched far and wide. "Someday this will be your world too," the queen said softly. "You will understand it. You will protect it in your way." The child looked out at the horizon, his small hands pressing against the rail. He seemed to understand her words, though he was still very young. He turned to her and smiled, as if promising that he would try his best. Inside the palace, there were rooms with glowing orbs that showed distant planets. The queen let him touch the orbs and he was amazed. He pointed at one bright blue planet and laughed. The queen chuckled. "That is your home long ago. One day you may visit it again." He clapped his hands in excitement, not fully understanding but feeling the joy of discovery. Every day the palace became a playground of learning and wonder for him. The dragons in the palace slowly began to accept the human child. At first some were unsure. How could a human live among dragons? How could he survive the strong winds and high towers? But the boy was fearless. He climbed over rocks, touched the glowing walls, and ran across the garden paths without fear. The dragons started to follow him, learning from his courage. The queen watched, proud of both her child and the way he was bringing unity between humans and dragons. He also began to help in small ways. He carried tiny items for the dragons, rearranged small stones in the gardens, and even helped the young dragonlings practice flying by guiding them gently. The queen encouraged this. "You see," she said, "even a small being can make a difference." The boy looked at her and smiled, proud of his small successes. The queen believed he was learning quickly, not just about the palace, but about leadership and responsibility. Every night the queen told him stories. She spoke of brave dragons, of faraway planets, and of humans who could change the world with courage and kindness. The boy listened with wide eyes, imagining himself as the hero in each story. Sometimes he reached up and touched the queen's scaled arm, asking her questions. She answered patiently, telling him that one day he would understand everything better. As the days passed, the boy became more than a human in a dragon palace. He became a symbol of hope. His laughter filled the halls. His curiosity taught the dragons patience. His small hands touched things with care, reminding the dragons that strength was not only in claws and wings but also in kindness and courage. One evening, as the twin suns set and the palace glowed in golden light, the queen looked at him and whispered, "You are mine now, but you are also part of the world. You will grow strong and one day, you will lead in your own way." The boy smiled up at her, unaware of the weight of her words, but feeling the warmth of her care. The palace had never been so alive. Dragons and humans, young and old, moved together in harmony. The child, small and human, was at the heart of it all, learning, growing, and changing the world around him without even knowing it. And the Dragon Queen knew that this was only the beginning. The palace was quiet one morning when news arrived from the neighboring kingdoms. The Dragon Queen listened carefully as her advisors spoke. "Some clans are worried about the human child," one said. They question whether a human can truly live among dragons. They challenge your decision, your majesty. The queen nodded. She had expected this. Humans were small and weak compared to dragons. Many dragons could not imagine a human surviving in their world. But she had seen the child's courage, his curiosity, and his clever mind. She was not afraid. Then we will meet their challenge, she said calmly. And we will show them what he can do. The neighboring clans sent representatives to the palace. They were dragons of many shapes and colors, each more powerful and proud than the last. They arrived at the palace gates and looked around. When they saw the human child playing in the gardens, some laughed quietly. How can this small creature face the tests of the strong? They whispered to one another. The queen led the human child to the courtyard, where the clans had gathered. She knelt down and spoke gently to him. Today you will show them what you can do. You do not need to fight or prove strength. Show them your mind, your courage, and your kindness. The child nodded, his small hands gripping her claws lightly. He did not fully understand, but he trusted her. The first test was a puzzle of light. Glowing panels covered the walls, and the child had to press them in the right order to unlock a door. The other dragons watched, curious to see how a human would react. The boy touched the panels carefully, studying the patterns. He tried one combination, then another, and finally the panels lit up in sequence. The door opened and the crowd gasped. A human had solved the puzzle before the dragons themselves had tried. The second challenge was a test of bravery. A small platform floated above a shallow pool of glowing water. The child was asked to step across without fear. He looked down at the water, then at the queen. She smiled, nodding at him. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. He balanced carefully, moving one foot after the other, his arms stretched wide for balance. When he reached the other side, he laughed, his courage shining brighter than the floating platform beneath him. The third test measured kindness and understanding. Several young dragonlings were hiding in a maze, unsure of the way out. The human child had to lead them to safety. Many dragons expected him to panic, but he moved slowly, listening carefully to the dragonlings' small sounds and following their clues. He pointed the way and guided them gently, never rushing or forcing them. One by one, the dragonlings followed him out of the maze. The clans watching whispered in surprise. The child had used patience and care, not strength or fire, to succeed. Finally, the last challenge was a test of creativity. The child was asked to combine several glowing crystals to make a new design. He touched the crystals thoughtfully, arranging them in shapes the dragons had never imagined. Light reflected in patterns across the courtyard, dazzling the onlookers. Even the most skeptical dragons stared in awe. A human had created something new, something beautiful, using only his imagination. When the tests were over, the dragon queen looked at the neighboring clans. "Do you see?" she said. "Strength is not only in claws and wings. Bravery, intelligence, kindness, and imagination are also powerful. This human child has all of these. He is worthy to live among us and to learn from us." The clans murmured among themselves. Slowly they began to bow, one by one, acknowledging the child's success. They had doubted him at first, but he had proven that humans could achieve greatness, even in a world of dragons. The child smiled, unaware of how much respect he had earned, but feeling proud of his small accomplishments. That evening, the palace was filled with celebration. Dragons and humans shared stories, laughed, and explored the gardens together. The child ran among them, chasing small dragonlings and giggling at their playful antics. The queen watched him, her heart full of pride. She had always believed in the human's potential, and now the world could see it too. The challenge had not been easy, but the human had passed it with courage, intelligence, and kindness. He had shown that even the smallest beings could make a difference. The queen whispered to him as he climbed onto her shoulder, "You are more than a human. You are a prince, and one day, you will lead in ways no one can imagine." The child looked out at the glowing horizon, feeling the warmth of the queen's words. He did not yet understand what it meant to be a prince, but he felt a spark inside him, a spark of purpose, courage, and hope. That night, as the twin suns set and the stars appeared, the child slept peacefully in the palace. Dragons watched over him, some curled nearby, some flying above. The queen remained at the window, looking out at the kingdoms beyond. She knew that this was only the beginning. Challenges would come again, but the human had already shown that he could face them. The story of the human child began to spread beyond the palace walls. Word traveled to distant lands of a human who could solve puzzles, face fears, guide others, and create beauty. Dragons from other kingdoms whispered in awe. Humans, though far away, became a symbol of curiosity, courage, and hope. And so, the human child continued to grow, learning from the Dragon Queen, the palace, and the dragons around him. He had faced his first challenge and succeeded, not with strength alone, but with the qualities that made humans remarkable. The Queen smiled, knowing that the boy's journey had just begun, and that one day he would change the world in ways that no one could yet imagine. The human child had grown taller and stronger. His small hands had become skilled and confident, and his mind was sharp and curious. Dragons watched him move through the palace with respect. He no longer seemed like a tiny human lost in a world of dragons. He was a part of the palace, a part of the kingdom, and slowly he became a symbol of hope and unity. The Dragon Queen often walked with him through the gardens. "You have grown well," she said one morning. "Do you know why I brought you here?" The boy shook his head. He had learned many things, but the full meaning of his place in the world was still a mystery to him. "Because humans are special," the Queen explained. "You think differently. You feel deeply. You imagine things others cannot. And one day your way of thinking will help dragons and humans work together." The boy looked at her thoughtfully. He did not fully understand, but he felt proud to hear her words. As he grew, he began to take part in the affairs of the kingdom. He listened to advisors, asked questions about faraway lands, and watched the Dragon Queen make decisions. Slowly he learned about leadership, about justice, and about responsibility. Every dragon in the palace began to notice his talents. Some dragons whispered to one another, saying that this human boy might one day become one of the wisest leaders in history. One day the Queen called him to the Hall of Stars. The walls glowed with constellations showing planets, moons, and distant galaxies. "Look at all of this," she said. "The universe is vast and there are many worlds out there. Humans can explore and learn. Dragons can guard and guide. You will be the one to bring our worlds together." The boy's eyes shone with wonder. He reached out to touch the glowing constellations. He asked questions about the planets, the stars, and the humans who lived far away. The Queen answered patiently, telling him that one day he would travel beyond this planet and see many things with his own eyes. In the palace, the boy worked to connect humans and dragons. He created games that taught dragonlings about human creativity. He taught dragons to read human stories and learn from them. He showed humans how to understand dragon ways. Slowly, a new harmony formed in the kingdom. Humans and dragons began to see each other not as different, but as partners who could learn from one another. Word of the human boy's abilities reached distant kingdoms. Dragons and humans alike came to meet him. They were curious about this human who could speak the language of dragons, understand their ways, and guide them with kindness. The boy welcomed everyone with open arms. He listened carefully, offered help, and shared ideas. His actions showed that humans, though small, could have a large influence on the world around them. The Dragon Queen continued to guide him. She taught him how to make decisions that were fair and wise, how to care for every dragon and human in the kingdom, and how to use knowledge for the good of all. The boy listened, learned, and tried. Sometimes he made mistakes, but he learned quickly. Every experience made him stronger, wiser, and more respected. One day, a council of dragons from neighboring lands arrived. They had heard about the human boy and wanted to see him for themselves. The Queen introduced him proudly. "This is the human I raised," she said. "He has learned our ways and shown us new ways of thinking. He is not just a child. He is a leader." The dragons were impressed. They had expected a small, weak human, but instead they found a clever, brave, and compassionate young prince. They listened to his words, watched his actions, and began to respect him. Some whispered to one another, saying that humans might be more powerful than they had imagined, not in strength but in courage, intelligence, and heart. As time passed, the human boy became a symbol of unity. Dragons and other kingdoms began to cooperate with humans. Humans learned from dragons and shared their knowledge. Together, they explored new lands, created new inventions, and built new friendships. The boy had become a bridge between worlds, a living example of what humans could achieve. The Dragon Queen watched him often, remembering the day he had arrived in a small basket from the sky. She smiled as she saw him now, tall and confident, guiding dragons and humans with wisdom and care. She knew that her decision to raise him had changed not only the boy's life but the fate of the entire kingdom. One evening, the boy stood on the balcony with the Queen. The twin suns set behind the mountains, casting golden light across the palace. "Do you understand now?" she asked softly. "The world needs both dragons and humans. And you are the one who will help them live together in peace." The boy looked out at the horizon. He felt the weight of her words but also a sense of excitement. He did not yet know all the challenges ahead, but he knew he could face them. He had learned courage, wisdom, and kindness from the Queen. He had learned the power of curiosity and imagination. And he had learned that even a human, small and fragile, could leave a mark on the world. As the stars appeared in the sky, the boy felt a new sense of purpose. He would continue to learn, to grow and to guide. One day he would become a prince not only of dragons but of all worlds, uniting humans and dragons in a future filled with hope, courage and friendship. The palace was quiet that night, but a new era had already begun. The human boy, raised by the Dragon Queen, had become a legacy, a promise that humans could inspire, lead and change the universe with their hearts and minds. The human prince stood at the highest balcony of the Dragon Queen's palace, looking out at the vast kingdom below. Mountains, rivers and forests stretched as far as the eye could see. Dragons flew gracefully across the sky, and humans moved through the streets, working and learning together. The world had changed and he felt the weight of what he had become. The Dragon Queen came to stand beside him. Her golden scales gleamed in the sunlight, and her wings cast a soft shadow over the balcony. "Do you see it?" she asked. "This is what we dreamed of. Humans and dragons living together, learning from one another, helping one another." The prince nodded. He remembered the day he had arrived in the palace, a small human child in a basket, unsure of the world around him. Now he was taller, confident and wise beyond his years. He had learned the language, the customs and the ways of dragons. He had also learned the power of his own mind, heart and courage. "The world is bigger than I ever imagined," he said softly. "There are many places beyond this kingdom, and many beings who have never seen humans or dragons working together." The queen smiled. "Then it is time for you to take the next step. You have learned well. Now you must share your knowledge, your kindness and your courage with others. You must lead." The human prince took a deep breath. He knew it would not be easy. There were many kingdoms that still doubted humans, many dragons who were cautious, and many challenges that had yet to appear. But he also knew that he had learned from the best teacher, the Dragon Queen herself. He had seen the power of patience, wisdom and compassion. He had learned that true leadership was not about strength alone, but about helping others grow. In the weeks that followed, the prince traveled across the kingdom with the queen. He met dragons of every size and color and humans from many distant lands. He spoke with them, listened to their concerns and shared ideas for cooperation. He taught dragons to understand human curiosity and imagination, and he taught humans to respect the strength and wisdom of dragons. Slowly barriers began to fall. The prince also worked on projects that would change the kingdom forever. He helped build schools where humans and young dragons could learn together. He guided teams in creating new technologies that combined dragon strength and human cleverness. Gardens flourished with plants from many planets, and the palace became a center of knowledge and exploration. Visitors from distant worlds came to see this remarkable union, inspired by the vision of a human prince. One day the prince and the queen looked out at a fleet of ships arriving from another planet. Humans who had never met dragons before stepped onto the land, and dragons who had never seen humans approached them cautiously. The prince smiled. He stepped forward and spoke to them both. "We are different but we can work together. We can learn from one another. We can explore the universe side by side." The visitors watched in awe. They had expected conflict, fear or misunderstanding. Instead they found harmony, friendship and respect. The human prince had shown them that courage, intelligence and kindness could create bridges where others saw only walls. The Dragon Queen rested her hand on the prince's shoulder. "You have done well," she said. "You have grown from a small child into a leader who can inspire many. The future is bright because of you." The prince looked at the horizon. He saw dragons teaching young humans to fly with care, humans guiding dragonlings through games of creativity, and the palace filled with laughter and learning. He felt proud but he also felt a deep responsibility. He knew that the work was never done, that new challenges would always come. But he was ready. He had learned from the queen, from the dragons and from his own heart. Word of the human prince's deeds spread beyond the kingdom. Other worlds sent ambassadors to learn from him, to see how humans and dragons could live together in harmony. Humans began to explore space more boldly, and dragons became their protectors and partners. Together they discovered new planets, shared knowledge and built friendships that had never existed before. The prince also remembered the lessons of kindness and courage. He helped those who were lost, taught those who were uncertain, and encouraged those who doubted themselves. His actions inspired others to try new things, to explore new ideas and to believe in themselves. People of all kinds began to see that even the smallest being could make a great difference. As the twin suns set and stars appeared in the sky, the prince returned to the balcony with the Dragon Queen. The palace glowed in golden light, and the kingdom below hummed with life. The queen looked at him with pride. "This is your legacy," she said. "You are not just a human in a dragon world. You are a bridge between worlds, a symbol of hope, and a leader who will guide many generations." The prince smiled, feeling warmth in his heart. He knew that he had grown stronger, braver, and wiser than he had ever imagined. And he knew that the journey ahead would be full of new adventures, challenges, and discoveries. But he also knew that he would never face them alone. Dragons, humans, and many friends would walk with him. The stars shone brightly above the palace, and the prince lifted his hand toward them. "Together," he whispered, "we can reach anywhere." And so, a new era began. Humans and dragons working side by side, exploring the universe, learning from one another, and building a future full of hope. The Dragon Queen watched her human prince, knowing that the boy she had raised would forever change the world. The human prince, once a tiny child in a basket, had grown into a true leader. He had shown that courage, kindness, and imagination could overcome fear and doubt. He had created a world where humans and dragons could thrive together. And above all, he had proven that even the smallest beings could leave the largest mark on the universe.